Afrodeities, Technologica, from Band 4. There is no greater myth than the myth of the primitive African. It is the foundational lie of colonial epistemology that blackness signifies absence. Absence of architecture, absence of calculation, absence of engineering, absence of code. The Technologica Codex exists to end that lie. This is not a catalogue of inventions. It is a civilizational record of systems, a documentation of how African societies engineered land, time, materials, knowledge, health, and governance with deliberate technical intelligence. This is neither folklore nor mysticism. This is technology remembered through myth, because myth was how knowledge survived rupture. In African civilizational logic, technology was never separate from cosmology, ethics, or ecology. Tools were not neutral. Systems were not isolated. Innovation was accountable to land, time, and community. Technologica names this integrated intelligence. African technology was not primitive because it was advanced, without abstraction from life. Africa engineered reality. Mathematics. From the Rhind and Moscow papyri to the surveying of Nile baselines, African mathematicians worked with fractions, proportions, volumes, and stress geometry long before Euclid was canonized. Mathematics was not symbolic prestige. It was governance infrastructure. Architecture. From Imhotep's load-bearing pyramidal geometry to Lalibela's subtractive stone architecture. From Nubian pyramid innovation to the mortarless precision of Great Zimbabwe. These were not isolated wonders. They were the output of repeatable systems, passed through guilds, priesthoods, and apprenticeships. Metallurgy. Lost wax casting in Ife. Ritual alloy mastery in Igbo Ukwu. Iron production in Nok and Meroe, centuries ahead of Europe. These were controlled thermal systems, alloy experimentation, and decentralized production networks. Metal was not merely material, it was social and spiritual technology. Hydrology. Nile basin irrigation was predictive, not reactive. Flood levels were measured, forecast, and calendrically integrated. In arid regions, underground foggeras and khanates sustained communities for centuries. This was not subsistence. It was environmental systems engineering, astronomy. From Nabta Playa to the Sothic cycle, African societies mapped the heavens with precision that structured agriculture, ritual, and governance. Time was not abstract. It was lived calibration. Medicine. African medicine was empirical, diagnostic, and ethical. Physicians trained for years. Surgical techniques existed. Inoculation methods predated Europe. Botanical pharmacopeias were vast and precise. Medicine was both science and covenant. These achievements were not anomalies. They were produced by integrated epistemic frameworks, long-term ecological planning, institutional memory embedded in ritual, redundant systems designed to survive disruption. Africa did not lack technology. Africa designed technology to survive erasure. And then, the erasure came. Much of what the modern world claims as Greek, Arab, or European innovation passed through African hands first. Libraries were burned. Guilds were dismantled. Practices were outlawed or relabeled. This was not ignorance. It was fear of black systems. Ask yourself, why don't you know this? When you encounter African technological achievement, the pyramids, Great Zimbabwe, Timbuktu manuscripts, Benin bronzes, why is it severed from blackness? You can see African technology and not register it as black achievement. You can know about the pyramids and never connect them to the continent. You can study ancient Egypt for years and never think Africa. The technology exists. The credit doesn't. The Technologica Codex is a repository of usable intelligence. African systems of time, ecology, engineering, ethics, and integration offer viable alternatives to extractive modernity, unsustainable growth, and disembodied technology. This is not about the past. This is about what still works. The code was never lost. It was carried in rhythm, in land practice, in craft, in memory. Technologica names the truth. African innovation was systematic, repeatable, and designed for continuity. The future is still African. This is Technologica, one of 12 Bridgeworks codices within the Afrodeities canon. The Bridgeworks are fable, griot, score, spell, script, sigil, memorabilia, soil, numbers, time, Technologica, and seed. Each codex is a bridge, connecting myth to system, past to future, rupture to continuity. Together, they demonstrate the power and sophistication of African civilizational architecture, how knowledge was archived, transmitted, and preserved across time and rupture. Afrodeities exists to prove that African memory systems were not primitive. They were engineered for survival, and they worked.
This work is part of the Bridgeworks, an original civilizational framework developed by Chinenye Egbuna Ikwemesi within Afrodeities, a restorative and corrective project making precolonial African history legible while teaching the same encoded knowledge, cultures, and practices across the diaspora. The goal is to demonstrate the power and sophistication of African civilizational architecture, how knowledge was archived, transmitted, and preserved across time and rupture. Afrodeities exist to prove that African memory systems were not primitive. They were engineered for survival, and they worked.